Good morning. The first thing I always see when I come live is how awful my hair is. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. Today, we're going to talk about hunger and how to not be hungry. If you have ever embarked on any kind of diet, or if you've thought about fasting, probably the first thing you think about is the misery and the hunger. Morning, Craig. And maybe the idea of any kind of prolonged fast is just out with your what's the word, potential right now, and that's okay. What tends to happen is it'll drop into our awareness at some point, and then we'll think, oh, I could never do that, and then it'll come back and it'll come back and it'll come back until eventually you think, well, maybe I could try a bit. And then you try it and it's way easier. Morning guys. So really it's about how can you make changes that don't cause more misery. And very aware right now, morning guys, morning Diane, that the last thing we want to do is stress people out. What we really want to do is empower each other. And intermittent fasting is such a powerful way to take back control over the body. And no matter what I'm talking about, we're always talking about your free will, that we all have this power to choose. And but sometimes it feels like we don't have the power to choose. Morning, Sean. Yes, I heard you saw Nikki yesterday. That was lovely. So because we live through okay, Mary, happy homeschooling. Because we live primarily through the past and through our habits and through our programs, the body is usually running the show. So any cravings or anything that the body says it wants or doesn't want, morning Leslie, that's normally, we obey the body. Morning May, morning Janice, rather than saying, actually, if I do what the body wants, that means I am functioning through the old habits and the old programs. And when I decide that I want to improve things, you maybe want to improve your clarity, your energy levels. I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't like to have more energy. It may be your weight. It may be the body is experiencing distress and disease. It really doesn't matter what you want to change or what you want to improve, really. That will involve you overriding your habits and making changes. And that is where we get stuck, because we have the thoughts, we have the feelings, and then we have the behaviour. And we think, oh, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to go outside more, I'm going to go exercise more. And we feel, yeah, that would be great. And then we don't do it. Or we do it once or we do it twice, because that's not what we normally do. So as soon as you take your eye off the ball, i.e. do things without thinking, you'll go back to doing what you always did. Not because you're stupid, not because you need any more education on the knowledge. You just need to understand how the brain works and how the past can end up ruling our lives. Now, so that's why I cannot talk about food without talking about the emotions and the habits and the past. So intermittent fasting, as I've said before, I was a nutritionist for years, and I just found it really frustrating when you look at people and you think, well, if you just ate that, you'd get better. And they just ate it for a bit and then went back to their old habits. And I thought, it was just, what is the point in telling people what to eat when you're pretty sure that they're not going to eat it? So that's what led me into the mind stuff and the habits and the behaviours. Why do we self-sabotage with food? So what I'm here to talk to you about today is fat. Now, if like me, you were, at your prime sort of main years being a teenager and young adult, it was low fat, low fat, low fat, low fat. And let's face it, kind of made sense in terms of the language. Cut out the fat and you'll get thin. Well, there couldn't have been anything further from the truth. And I'll just explain that a little bit, why that has been one of the worst things we've ever been told, and how now we have unprecedented levels of obesity and disease, because people still don't fully understand this. The fear of fat, there's a brilliant documentary called Don't Fear Fat, but our ingrained subconscious fear of fat makes us stay away from foods that will make you feel full, will actually make you thin. Eating fat makes you thin, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But primarily, if you're fasting, and particularly intermittent fasting, you are going to feel hungry. If you're stretching yourself a bit, you'll have a feeling in your belly that you will translate as hunger. But the thing is, you don't actually have to pay any attention to that. There's lots and lots of feelings that you can just completely ignore. But with hi Fee, but with this feeling of hunger, we constantly think we need to do something about it. So intermittent fasting, if you have enough fat in your diet and you've chosen a window that's manageable, you will not feel hungry. And if you are feeling hungry, there's a very good chance you're not eating the right percentages of macros. What are macros? Proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Okay? So let's just keep it basic right now. If you are of a perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal age, then what can happen is, as you come through that, and we've kind of got a clue, it's hormonal, obviously, but what can happen is you become carbohydrate intolerant, insulin sensitive, okay? And what that means is that you need to, in simple terms, you need to eat less carbohydrate to stay the same weight, right? So your percentages of fats, proteins and carbohydrates will need to change, or you will get that very famous menopausal middle. Now, it doesn't matter what age you are, because there's so many hormone disruptors in our world right now. And if you've got children and if you're having periods, etc., and if you're a man, if you're working inside and under a lot of stress, a lot of our foods and a lot of the way we live now disrupts our hormones. Not being outside enough disrupts our hormones. So if you are having the hormone disruptors, then eventually it can be that what you ate, we all know this to some degree, what you ate when you were 18, if you eat the exact same now, you'll not get the same result. And it's simply because your macros percentages have to change. Now, you may not know, some people don't understand carbohydrates, proteins and fats. If you don't know that, please Google it and find out the foods that contain protein and fat, ones that are really good fats, because obviously within this macros, we have the quality of the macros, for example, too. So we're always at Heal Scotland about keeping it as close to the way Mother Nature gave us it as possible. As soon as people start to process it to make more money, to make it look more tempting to you, even how they mix the fats and the sugars to get you wanting more of that taste. We know all of that. They know how the brain works. They're reeling us in to eat more of the foods that are basically not satisfying the body. So, and then what happens is, of course, we start craving a lot of foods, because remember, going back to what Janice was teaching us on Monday, is the microbiomes, like, give me more of that, I want more crap, I want more sugar, I want more processed flour, because that's what you've been feeding. So these little tiny little beasties are ruling your show. It's not because you don't have any willpower. It's simply because you don't understand what is happening in your own body. I certainly never. Nobody's teaching this stuff in school. One of the most important things you can ever learn is how to keep that body that you're in healthy and vital and clear. And now we're just understanding it's a whole farm of things going on here that require certain things, and that requirement can change as you get older, if you're more stressed. You know, if you're running a marathon, if you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, if you're building a house, if you're splitting up with your partner, all of these things have different nutritional demands on the body. And let me tell you about fat. So, your essential fats are your omega-3, 6 and 9. Now, there's a whole load of narratives around essential fats. If you say it's essential, you're basically saying you have to eat it, the body can't make it. I'm not entirely sure that's true, because what we know is people are only giving us out the information at their level of understanding, right? But let's assume for now that you have to eat fat in order to feed the cell membrane. Now, you know how I like to talk about the cells. So the cells are these beautiful little containers for everything. All the information, every cell contains all the information that we ever need to have. Every single cell is so incredible. And the wall of the cell is made of essential fats. So you think of an essential fat staying liquid at room temperature, so like olive oil, that sort of texture. It's thicker than water, and it's not like a saturated fat. A saturated fat sets at room temperature. That's how you know the difference. So if you grill bacon, you'll get that fat in the bottom, so you know and it goes hard. That's the saturated fat. So what's this? Why is the general diet so unhealthy marketed? Every single advert. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about the marketing today, guys, because really, you know, they just want to sell to us, and they want to make money for as little cost as possible. That is all about money. So let's just focus on the fat. So the essential fats and the saturated fat. So the cell membrane has this, like an olive oil kind of texture, so that things can get in and things can get out. So if your cell membrane is compromised, if you've got an essential fat issue, so you don't have enough fat, the cell membrane starts to tighten. Now guess how you feel when the cell membrane starts to tighten. You start to feel anxious. You start to feel, something's wrong. So that's why you have to, if you suffer from anxiety, the first thing you have to do is make sure you've got enough fat in your diet, and if you don't, supplement it, so that your cell membrane is not compromised. So the cell membrane, if it's buoyant and hydrated, and this is another thing about hydration, if you do not have a buoyant cell membrane in terms of fat, you will not absorb the water. So you can drink as much water as you want, but you'll just pee it out, because you'll not hydrate at a cellular level. Now there's something else that happens with the cell membrane, and this is the molecules of emotion. So it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I start to feel contracted, right, and then I'm like, anxiety comes in and my thinking drops to match. I go into the problem zone. I've got problems. And then all the molecules dock on the cell membrane, because your emotions are intrinsically linked to your fat. So the proteins start to dock on the cell membrane, and the cell membrane again tightens even more. And there you have the self-fulfilling prophecy. I am anxious, I am my anxiety. And that can be your essential fat profile and your thinking and your lack of water. And they all affect each other. Now, I hope I've explained that well enough to you. Your cell membrane has been contracted because you're not eating enough fat. Your cell membrane has been contracted because you're not hydrated. Your cell membrane is contracted because you've been thinking negative thoughts because of the state of your hydration and your fats. Okay? But also, your thinking can contract the cell all by itself. Even if you're eating the most healthy, beautiful, amazing diet, And I see this a lot, people that only focus on their diet and don't think about how they're judging everybody else for what they eat. So you have this really healthy, hydrated, buoyant cell, okay, that's just like, yeah, I can send signals, signals can come in and come through me, and toxicity can come in and it can get back out again because I allow it. And then you start to think thoughts, look at them, look what they're eating, look what they're doing, they're wrong and I'm right. And guess what happens? All the molecules start to dock on the cell membrane and you get more contraction. So this is judgment. When you judge somebody else or yourself, you're telling the cells there's a problem. There's a problem. Houston, there's a problem. There's a problem. There's a problem. And the problem is you're having a thought about yourself or somebody else and you're believing it. So when you start to believe your negative thoughts, you create cellular contraction. Right, is that clear? Please let me know if that's clear. So your cell membrane and your anxiety has been affected by your intake of fat or lack of fat, your hydration, your water, your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs. Okay? Your perceptions. All of that is affecting your cell. You are doing everything to your own cells. Is that clear? Yes or no? If you've got any questions, pop them in the box and I'll answer them afterwards, because it knocks me off track if I start to try and read too many messages. Okay, so fat. Why do we need fat? Well, we can run on fat or we can run on glucose. That's our two. That's your unleaded and your super unleaded. A great analogy I heard was that when you're running in carbohydrate, it's like the kindling, right? So it burns away really quickly. But when you're running on fat, that's like when you've stoked it all up with coal and briquettes. Do you remember briquettes? And that's the slow burning fuel. So that's ketones. So when you're actually burning into fat, when you change your diet so that you're not running on glucose, you're running on fat, you are going to get a better, longer lasting result. But then you have to add into that how you're breathing. Can you see how I can't talk about one thing and forget everything else? How are you breathing? Are you breathing in and out through your nose? Yeah? How are you sleeping? Is the body getting that chance with the circadian rhythm to do all these amazing things that works for your memory, for your detox, for your restoration and your regeneration? It all works together. So I hope I'm not overloading you here, because I can't emphasize this enough. You can't take single nutrients and single bits of the body and say, well, that, because it all works as one big phenomenally intelligent energy system. So what has happened, and there's a train of thought that says you have carbohydrate, protein and fat enzymes. Now what the enzymes in your gut do is they break down the food. And the idea is that your body, your microbes get what they need, they go through the bowel and then you excrete the excess. What happens if you're putting in the wrong food for your microbes and you don't have enough enzymes? Then the body will start to bloat. You may get a lot of reflux, both ways, up and down. You may get fatigue, and the body may start to store. Because here's what the body will do. It'll make a cell and it'll just store it. It might store it in your boobs, your butt, your belly if you're a guy, most likely. Because when you're a female, our skin is designed to stretch from the knees to the shoulders. Our skin's designed to stretch so that when we can grow another human from being pregnant, okay? Men, they don't have that capacity, and that's why their fat will normally come out at the front. So that's really important to know as well. And so the body's just going to store, because all that a fat cell is stored energy. And, you know, it's perfectly natural to be fatter and thinner through the year. It's perfectly natural, depending on what you're eating and what you're doing, and whether you're hibernating a little bit or not. But because we have completely ignored nature, we've got artificial lighting, artificial heating, artificial food, artificial hormones. We have just, because we think we know better, right? And now we're paying a humongous price for that. So we were told, stop eating fat. So what did you, I know I did this, stop eating fat, and I was eating a lot of whole grain bread and wholemeal pasta thinking I was doing good. Well, I'm blood group O, which is a whole other live. If you're a blood group O, you're a hunter-gatherer diet. Meat and 2 veg. It's very simple. No dairy, no grains. The other blood groups have got more grains in them, more vegetables, but for hunter-gatherers, primarily, cut out the dairy and cut out the grains and you will lose weight, guaranteed. But what I want to really talk today about is the fat, and the fat to do with this intermittent fasting challenge. When you can fast, when you really truly understand that you have the power to stop eating, and eating is one of our biggest drugs. Our food now is one of the biggest drug problems we have. Look at America and Britain. It's just mental what we're doing. And I believe it's because we don't understand. And that's why I'm wanting to educate you and inspire you about this. So, when you eat plenty of fat, you will absolutely switch off your hunger switch. Okay? And if you don't believe me, try it. So, let's go to the ketogenic diet. Now, I know that a lot of people say vegan diet's the healing diet. And vegetables 100% are critical to your health. So I'm not saying cut out vegetables here, but what I am saying is if you are very insulin resistant and obese and gaining weight, then the ketogenic diet is for you to try 100%. Because what happens is, as you become, so let me give you an example. You're eating 50% carbohydrate, 40% protein and 10% fat right now, okay? So you're eating more protein than fat, but you're eating the equal amounts of carbohydrate. You're insulin resistant, and you're insulin resistant to 25% carbohydrate, which means that's 25% of your diet is carbohydrate. If you eat 26%, you'll store weight. This is how precise the body is and the microbes are. So if you don't get to what Professor Tim Noakes calls your bite point, i.e. if you want to lose weight and your bite point's 25%, eat 24% carbohydrate and the weight will fall off you. And they are having phenomenal success once people truly understand. Now, the other thing is, with the protein, some people can convert protein to glucose. So you have to have the fat up, right? So sometimes you'll have to have more fat than protein. Now, you might need a bit of help with a nutritionist to work this out for yourself. But what you can do is you can just take a lot more fat, a little bit more protein, and a little bit more carbohydrate and observe your own body. Because you know how I'm big on, we've got the power to work this out ourselves. But maybe you just don't want to. You don't want to read. You don't want to do all the research. You just like somebody else to guide you. That's fine. But know your own body. So we're now adjusting the carbohydrates, the proteins, and we're getting more fat in. Now, there is absolutely no doubt that if you're a vegan, it's more challenging to get your fats way up to that degree. You're obviously looking at avocados, and my pal Claire and I were talking about the West's greed for avocados is causing huge problems in different countries because that's what happens. We need to think about how that we can grow, things can be grown, harvested, and really be looking to do it locally. So nuts and seeds, if you're in Scotland, nuts and seeds obviously primarily the great source. I use a thing, I'll just get it for you. I'll show you. I use this MCT oil. Now, this is just one I bought recently. It doesn't need to be that brand because I think they're all pretty good. What this is, it's a triple omega-3 made from coconut oil. And it doesn't taste like anything, but it really fattens up things. So if I'm making a gravy or a soup or a stew, I just put that in. Now you need to be very careful with it because it can give you diarrhea. Sorry for the description at this time in the morning. So there's ways of increasing your fat content if you are a vegan that you can Google again yourself and look at ways to make sure you're getting adequate fat. If you're a carnivore, things like, believe it or not, pork, fatty pork, lamb. Lamb is a superfood. Pork, not everybody digests it well, but lamb for sure. Again, we're looking at humane. We're lucky in Scotland because our animals get to roam the hills and, you know, they're not injected with anything. We're actually, you know, got much stricter farming rules. So if you can get your meat locally, happy days. And I know that that'll upset a lot of animal lovers, but the reality is, in terms of healing the body, some people need meat. I'm sorry to say it. It's part of the food chain. So can we wean ourselves off of that? Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that we can. But right now, I'm just telling you how the bodies are working in this moment. And as we change our vibration, that can all change of what we need. But what I'm wanting to talk to you and get really, really into your head is about how fat can help make you thinner and it can help allow you to fast. So what happens, so intermittent fasting for now, I'm doing 18-6. So in the I had made, yesterday for example, I'd made a chicken soup with some MCT oil in it, made with chicken stock, chicken bone stock, and lumps of chicken as well, obviously, because you've got the protein in there for satiety. And then if you want to lose weight, vegetables that grow above the ground, but of course some of the tastiest vegetables in the winter are our root vegetables. I'm not really caring too much about the weight thing right now, but if you are, vegetables that grow above the ground have got less starch. Vegetables that grow below the ground have got more starch, and you need to be more mindful, because if you mix the starchy vegetables with the fat, you may gain weight, but not if you're intermittent fasting. Because if you're intermittent fasting, you're leaving that 18 hours every single day. There's not a single calorie or anything going in there for the body to work out, and you've just given the body all this space to rest. Next week, I'm actually going to do 24 because I'm finding the 18-6 not even a challenge, really. So the fat is what's going to make you full. And if you have not tried this yet, you're going to be amazed. Okay, so you can have a bone broth. Like last night I had the roast lamb, chopped cabbage, onion, celery, and made a vinegar mint with it. A little bit of MCT oil. Boom, totally full, not thinking about food. Because if you are thinking about food all the time, you're going to fail. Because it's miserable, and you don't want to be miserable. It's hard enough right now. So you need to switch off that hunger switch. And if you have a bit of insulin resistance, a bit of carbohydrate intolerance, because perhaps you've used a lot of the enzymes in your gut because you've not been eating the right food for a long time. And again, go back to Monday's chat with Janice Klein, and her and I are going to be doing a lot more on the microbiome and the hormone balance to really help and inspire you to fully understand your own body. Now remember, maybe it's not a one-size-fits-all here. So you can't just, you've got to actually take some responsibility. Write down what you eat. You know, if you're going into ketosis, if you want to do the ketogenic diet properly, you really have to weigh everything so that you absolutely know. Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to do that ever. So I just make sure I've got plenty of fat in. And then you can tell if you're not starting to lose weight within a week, then, or inches, because very often the muscle comes up and the fat shrinks. If you're not starting to see or feel the difference in a week, you're still not eating enough fat, or you're still eating too much carbohydrate and protein. So you have to get your macros into the percentages, and then you'll get the result like that. And once you start to feel that way, because it's a journey, right? Don't overload yourself initially. Just do something easy. Now, what people think, and what I thought was, the first time I did the ketogenic diet, I was living in Malta, and I hated it. Why? Because I'm pretty much a vegan. I always eat fish and a bit of meat here and there, but 98% of my diet was vegetables. And I read about the ketogenic diet, and I like to try all these things out in my own body just to see. So to cut out a lot of the vegetables, and I was actually feeling quite nauseous at the amount of fat I was eating, and I wasn't enjoying it. So what did I do? I started complaining in my head, oh, this doesn't work for me, no, this isn't. And then I realised it was the change, right? I didn't want to change because I liked what I was doing. I liked the diet that I was doing. But I still was not getting on top of the arthritis. So I was like, no, you're going to stick to it for at least a month, so before you can really criticise or not. And month's probably not even long enough. You can give it 6 weeks. And because you'll be stunned at how the body will start to change, even if you don't do any exercise. So I was doing yoga at the time, but nothing cardio. So I bumped my gums for about the first 3 weeks. I don't like this. Because that's what we do, right? Because we try and talk ourselves out of it. We say, oh, well, that wasn't for me. Oh, I tried that. Oh, it made me feel sick. Well, no. It's the change, the resistance to the change, and also all that outdated information and really damaging information that we got 20 odd years ago that we're still actually living through. So I have never seen such a transformation in my body, honestly. I knew I wouldn't keep that diet up because I love my vegetables too much. But as I keep saying, there's a healing diet and then there's a maintenance diet. So if you are very ill, you may have to make a lot of changes in order to get your body to respond. But as long as you know it's not going to be forever, as long as you know how to just trick the body into doing things that you need it to do, I'm actually finding it easy too. I'm not even... Yes, yeah, I think it has to be easy and it has to be empowering. And if it's not empowering, if you're hungry all the time, you're thinking about food all the time, well, we're going to do more on releasing around the idea that if you get a feeling, you've got to put food in your mouth to make it go away. Drinking, my belly rumbles definitely in the morning. I mean, sometimes when I'm doing the lives, drink lots of mint tea, or just hot water and lemon, or any herbal tea that you've got. I have a black coffee first thing, well, second thing in the morning. I put some fresh water in first, and I like to just sit and have my real coffee. That's my routine. And of course, real black coffee takes away any hunger. The other thing that you can do that's really powerful is bulletproof coffee. I'll put so just before you finish your fast, after your dinner, you could have a bulletproof coffee and you will absolutely not be hungry after that. It was a guy... Actually, I didn't realise how it was devised. I was watching one of these documentaries the other day. When he was out in, I think it was Tibet, they gave him yak's tea. So it was just big lump of fat and water. He said it wasn't particularly delicious, but it made him feel warm and it made him feel really, really energetic. And that's where he got the idea for bulletproof coffee. So it's just putting fat into your coffee. And that's really why I started getting the MCT oil, but now I just put a little bit in all my food. And also be careful with the MCT oil because it can cause contractions. You need to just have a little bit of it. You don't need a lot. Yeah, Susie, I absolutely, totally with you on that. Even when you understand the macros and you're right, okay, I need to stop running on glucose and try and run in fat, or you're tottering around that edge, and that's a real thing at menopausal age. We know women are vulnerable then because for some reason the body stops managing the inflammation and we become inflamed, and that inflammation causes us to do all sorts of things. Blood pressure can go up, blood sugars can go up. And again, that part of your sleep, you know that if you're not sleeping with a circadian rhythm, it can massively affect your blood sugar. So again, all of it. And it's been amazing to hear, we're only, day 4? The incredible results that people are having already in terms of sleep. And just the actual conscious effort to say, do you know what, body? I am taking over from you because what I've been doing in the past just did not work. It sounds like it's a personal body thing for each person. How would an individual Yeah, well, that's a really good question, May. What I did when I was doing it was I just put my fat right up and kept the carbs right down. And really, if you want to go into this, if you've got a real issue, you need to weigh all your food and you need to make sure, because then you'll absolutely know by the result that you're getting in the body. You can also get a meter for ketosis. I'm not a great one for gadgets, but I know they can be super helpful. And my daughter gave me a watch now that will tell me about my sleep, my heart rate, because I've noticed that my heart rate's up, and what's the other thing that... because what I'm doing now with my breathing is elongating my breath holds and seeing if I can get my pulse rate down by breathing alone. So that's going to be really helpful for that. But if you have to look at how much protein, how much fat and how much carbohydrate is in the food that you're eating and write it down. But the other thing is, of course, again, when you're eating the food in this compressed window, you will also have the effect... I am not weighing things. It just feels wrong for me. Yeah, well, it's not wrong. There's no right and wrong. I mean, you don't take unlimited amounts of medicine. You would take a measured dose, and food is your medicine. And if you're really ill, you do have to pay very close attention. And really, the things have got out of hand because we've not paid attention. We've been mindless with our food, and I include myself in that. So when you're out of balance, you may have to pay a lot of attention to your macros if you have to heal something. The other thing that fat is great for is stopping sugar cravings, because the cravings, again, as Janice was talking about on Monday, is coming from the microbiome. And also it can be a habit. Oh, it's a treat. Sugar's my treat. Oh, it's the weekend, so I eat sugar. Oh, it's my birthday, so I eat sugar. Oh, it's... sugar is this. There's all these emotional attachments to the sugar, and that can be in here. So, and again, it's easy for me because I just don't have any of that in the house, and it is more challenging if it is in your house and your mind can be thinking, oh, because I know that I was doing that with salted caramel ice cream I was buying for the kids, and then if they didn't eat it all, I would eat it myself. So I know that if it's there and your willpower goes down, then you can end up eating it. But also there's lots of different ice creams and desserts that you can make that are full of fat. Coconut oil is a really good way to get that. Nuts, nut milks, so you can... There's different things you can do so that you don't feel that you're doing without. But the thing is, your food is your medicine. If you need to get better in any way to balance your hormones, to lose weight, to have more energy, to have a non-foggy head, and let's face it, dementia is a horrendous thing that has just become a pandemic as well. All of these things can be addressed with great nutrition, oils and hydration. So, fermented foods and drinks also change cravings. Yes. That's great, Janice. And you and I will we're going to talk again about balancing your hormones, because if your blood sugar is up and down and round about the houses, you'll be craving, your energy's going to be up and down, you're going to be craving things, and you're going to be out of control. And Janice and I were talking about that, having these fat bombs in your fridge or your freezer, having your kombucha made so that you know that you can drink something down that's going to really feed the biome that you want to be encouraging. All of these things, all of these tips, we're going to be bringing it all to you so that it's really easy to understand. But the main thing is, for this video, is about fat. Fat makes you thin. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. There's different variations for everyone, but the more fat you have, the healthier cell membranes you're going to have, the more clarity in your brain you're going to have. If you're eating a lot of processed carbohydrates that you cannot digest, that have got zero nutrition in them, that have been bleached and processed and all the fibre taken out, all of that stuff, over a period of time, your body is just going to basically be so depleted, you're going to be tired and dis-ease will appear. It can't be any other way. And we have the power to stop that. But the big thing is learning to fast, as well as learning to nose breathe and learning to think about the things you want. All of these things are going to bring you success. But there is no drug that can do that. It'd be fantastic if somebody else could just fix us. We could just put ourselves into the garage, i.e. the hospital, and they could fix us. This is not the way it is. We're a living organism. And nobody has really ever taken the time to explain the magnificence and the complexity and the harmony of this thing when it's all done with intelligence and mindfulness and intent. So taken away from this just shoving food in our mouth to make ourselves feel better as a social pastime, to feel, people just giving it to us so we just eat it. We have to really rise above that and really start to go, right, okay, what do I need? What in my health needs to be addressed? It's got to be a prevention. Inflammation, toxicity and stress are causing all diseases, no matter what names you give to them. Fat will douse your inflammation. It is absolutely the most powerful thing you can do. Now, I'm not saying get any old crappy fat. You have to get the good quality fats. As always, just take the food that Mother Nature has already given us, that is local to you if you can, and just make sure. And also, people ask me about supplementing all the time, and I do supplement, but not the same all the time. A good omega-3, about 1200 EPA every single day. If you're menopausal, and if you're vegetarian or vegan, you need to make sure that you're supplementing so that you're, and also for Alzheimer's, it's an inflammation and a fat issue caused by lack of understanding. So, and there's a brilliant documentary called Fat Fiction and Food is Your Medicine, both on Amazon Prime, and they're free. So please watch these documentaries and really educate yourself so that you truly understand how could something, cheers Fee, how could something as simple as eating, how have we got so far away from just whole foods and real foods? Yes, Janice, fermented foods are not for everyone. Yeah, there's different times in your life you have different nutritional needs, and there's different, when you've got blood types have an impact, enzymes, what you've eaten in the past, how much stress you've been through, trauma. If you're going through a lot of trauma, you eat up into your essential fat supply. Also your place in the family, the oldest, like me, you get the best. Your mum's the healthiest probably she's going to be, and you get the best pop of her essential fat profile the further down you are. But there's no need to worry about that, because once you understand, you can replace and replenish and regenerate. So there's all sorts of different things to take into consideration. But I always say it doesn't really matter why, it's what do we do from here. I'm big into the solution. You can ruminate over the past and you can find out who did what and why and whatever. I really don't think that matters unless you're very interested. It helps to give you an understanding of why you're the unique you that you are, but it's still going to be like, what do we do now? And what we do now is make sure that we've got tons of fat in our diet, and that'll switch off your hunger, you'll lose weight, and you're going to feel really clear because you're going to be running on the right kind of fuel. Super octane. Okay, I will go through and I will look at all the questions. I'm sure people have got a lot to say about what they think. This is, I can only talk about what's worked for me, and all the latest research is what I bring you. Then it's up to you to take what you resonate with and try out the ideas on your body, your cells. Remember your cell membrane. It needs these essential fats because that's how it's going to dance and be in tune and harmony. Okay, thank you so much for all your Thanks, Janice. Yeah, I'll be talking to you again because we really need to do one about around the menopausal thing. Lots of ideas for you, inspiration. That's the whole idea with this, is to inspire you. You know, you probably know more about your car or your TV than you do about your own body. And Heal Scotland, we're going to change that for you. So huge love and thanks, and I'll chat to you soon. Ciao.